Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Taste of Transformation podcast. If you like what you hear, please share with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and all podcast platforms at Taste of Transformation for more episodes like this. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or know of someone who would be a good guest, please reach out to us at tasteoftransformation@gmail.com. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. I'm Charles Lewis, and welcome to Taste of Transformation. On our podcast, we interview men and women who are either formerly incarcerated and are living successful lives, or have helped people who are formerly incarcerated live successful lives. And they share their stories. We share our stories over some of our favorite meals, our stories of triumphs, challenges, how we got over. And on this podcast, we do our best to share valuable lessons that we've learned in our lives and that hopefully you can learn in yours. And normally, I will be the person interviewing, but today is a special day, I guess, and I'm going to be the one being interviewed. So I'm going to turn the mic over now to my father, Michael J. Love.
And indeed, it's an opportunity and a pleasure to interview my brother, because I know this young man. I know him very personal ways. I watched him when we was first in Fishkill Correctional Facility together. You know, a man who was kind of lost but determined to find his way. You know. And now here we are. What's the favorite term we use? We're out here.
We out here.
We out here. That's the term that we use. And we use that term because it allows us to take a picture of the moment, to freeze it in time, and to evaluate or to give value to what that means. So when we say we're out here, we know there's those that we left behind that would like to be out here, but they're not. So how you feeling today, brother?
I'm tired, but I'm feeling good. I'm excited. We have these interviews over meals that we've cooked while we were on the inside. But after talking to a few people, they was just like, yo, what if you do it like over just some of your favorite meals in general? So I was like, all right. We'll give it a shot. And today's the first shot. So I bought some wings from Popeyes, the latest wings.
They look delicious.
Got the hot joints, got the lemon pepper, and the garlic and Parmesan. So good food, good company. Looking forward to a good interview.
And all those are dangerous to us, but delicious.
Yeah. Just ask my wife to forgive me now, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Well, you go first.
All right. So my favorite is always the hot ones. But let me open this water just in case it's really hot.
Water ain't gonna help you if it's really hot, bro.
Man, anybody that knows me knows I eat some hot food.
You do. You know, but I know that water ain't gonna help you though. Once you start sweating in your forehead, it tastes.
It tastes really good. Like I go to like Buffalo Wild Wings, hot wings, like places that are known for making good wings.
Yes.
This really can compete with them.
Let me try it.
I've had that. I think this is my first time having the hot ones. The garlic Parmesan ones are always banging. I don't know if I've ever had the lemon pepper one.
Let me try this one here.
Like, it's gonna be difficult. So I'm asking the listeners now to forgive me because you're probably gonna hear me smacking and busting it down.
This tastes kind of sweet and spicy.
That's the lemon pepper. That's the lemon pepper.
Wow.
Yeah, their wings are good. And they're $6. Like you $6 for 6. So
it's roughly $1 a wing, huh?
Yeah, the flavors is off the chain for this hot one. I know them Pops, I think you should try the garlic Parmesan ones too. They're really good.
Oh, well.
So how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's been a very busy day for me. You know, and as you know, I'm in a transition from one job to another. But I love the opportunity of doing what law-abiding citizens deal with, you know. They deal with these kind of things. When I was a scoundrel, I didn't have to worry about things like that.
Things like what?
Getting a job.
That's true.
You know?
So I don't know if anyone remembers. Well, they should. If y'all go back to the earlier episodes where I interviewed Mike, and we spoke about his criminal background. So I always tell people, if you ever seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage, that's how I always describe you. Brother was out here stealing high-end cars.
At gunpoint.
So,
like I had a license to do that.
this chicken is really good. I'm gonna try the garlic parmesan one.
I like that. I like that the best so far.
All right. So what?
So, getting back to you. Now, Charles Lewis, we called him Sonny Boy because of the intimacy of our relationship. So how long have you been out here now?
I came home October 31st of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
2016. I always get confused between 2015 and 2016. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 2016.
And from the time that your foot first hit the ground, can you remember what were some of the challenges? What was you thinking? Because first of all, when you had a release date to go home, for the person who's incarcerated, they become almost morbidly obsessed with that. And then before you know it, the door is opening, and you're being regurgitated from the belly of the beast back into society. Do you by any chance remember how you felt then?
Yeah, I remember the day that I came home. I remember that vividly. It took some. I got released from Fishkill, and instead of taking me to my residence, which was a shelter, they took me directly to my parole officer.
Really?
Yeah. I forgot what the level of classification is. It's been so long since I've kept up with it. But they had me on like a high level classification where they thought that I would go back to jail like almost immediately, I guess. Yeah. So I remember I was released in handcuffs. I was still handcuffed. So I still wasn't free in a sense, right? On the drive home, I remember looking out, and I forgot which bridge we crossed, but I'm looking at the water, and I'm just like, oh shoot, like it's been a while. It's been years since
that was 11 years you had served, right?
So I did a total. I was in for. They sentenced me to 11, and then they cut it in half. Mm-hmm. So I was able to do 6 in and 5 out. 5 on parole. Right. And so I went to my parole officer. They released me to Bellevue Shelter. And all I had was my Social Security card, my jail ID, the $40 that they give you, and the clothes on my back, and a phone number of someone to call. So I was nervous, but I was also excited. I felt like there was the only thing that I can do was to go up, because I felt like I was at the bottom. That lasted for about 3 days. Feeling like, oh, I got this. That lasted for about 3 days.
And what was some of why did it only last 3 days? Was there some sobering encounters that kind of disillusion you or just kind of firm you up, so to speak?
It was a couple of things. Mm-hmm. So the one, like I was released to the shelter, it was Bellevue Shelter. Mm-hmm. And it's just like prison.
That's just what I heard.
It's just like prison. In some ways worse, in some ways better. Mm-hmm. Better because you can just get up and walk out.
Yes.
I mean, you're not walking out of prison. Mm-hmm. At least not without a bullet in your behind.
Yes. Worse
because there's a level of respect when you're in prison. Mm-hmm. You're going to keep your unless you're on a nasty housing unit, your unit's going to be clean. You know what I mean? The bathrooms is not going to be looking crazy. Nobody's going to leave poop all over the toilets. Mm-hmm. And the shelters, it's just mold everywhere, mildew everywhere, poop everywhere. And so it was that part of it. It was just like, yo, like I'm living in this. Mm-hmm. And then there was also, I thought he was a friend of mine when we were locked up. He gave me his wife's phone number. He owned a business, which he did. He owned a construction company. Mm-hmm. And he told me that once I got out, to give his wife a call, and she would set me up with a job. Mm-hmm. And him and I were friends for years while we were incarcerated.
Yes.
Come home, I call the number, a woman picks up. So I'm like, hi, this is Charles. I'm calling from say her husband's name, and she was like, I don't know who he is. I don't know. And I was just like, she hung up. And I was like, well, maybe she thinks that I'm just trying to get over. So let me give it a couple of days, for him to get in contact with her. And I called back, and same conversation, but that time this conversation got a little bit more in depth. And she was like, listen, baby, she was like, I've received a couple of phone calls like this. She was like, I don't know who he is. Yeah.
That is strange.
And
crazy.
so in that moment, I realized, he gave me a ghost number in a sense. Like, it was fake. Like, this whole, like, all these years that I've been riding with him, he'd been lying to me. And so, like, even while I was locked up, I was preparing to go home to help not run the business, but to
help him out.
To help him out.
You can, yes.
And, like, I was ordering books. He was ordering books for me to learn how to do this, to learn how to do his business, learn how to manage the property.
See, that's one thing about prison. You encounter a wide range of psychosis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That manifests itself in astounding in different ways.
That shit was crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Because I bet you to this very day you can't make sense of that.
No, I always say, if I see him, I'm slapping him. Like, I'm slapping him. And then I'm going to give him a hug afterwards. I did wind up bumping into him, though. So
did you?
I did. But so in that moment, though, like, I just felt like, my life is over. Because I just had this set plan, like, okay, I'm going to manage this property. I've been studying for this. I've been reading on this. Him and I have been talking about this. And
That's
then,
incredible.
And then all of a sudden, like, that.
So how did you rebound from that?
That day, I cried. I called a friend of mine. I cried because I was scared. Mm-hmm. I knew that I needed to stay away from, like, friends and family because I didn't want to get caught back up into the lifestyle that I was in. So I just felt like I was on my own. I felt like I was on my own. And then after I cried, I just said, you know what? Like, you're just going to have to buckle up. Like, just take it literally step by step because I didn't know, like, what else to do.
And where did you grow up at?
I grew up half my life in Mount Haven Projects, and then half my life in Brownsville. Mm-hmm. Most of my life in Brownsville, Brooklyn. That's where I grew up. Tilden Projects.
And, wow, that's like the hood of hoods right there, bro.
Yeah. It was, for me, it's home, right? Mm-hmm. Then when I talk to people about it, or, like, if I bring someone there, they're like, "Yo, you used to live here?" Like, the shock on their face. And then when I go back and, like, do the research on, like, the deaths that happened in Brownsville, it was just, and then, like, the crack epidemic was crazy in Brownsville. It was pretty tough, and it was tough. It was scary at times. I've seen, sadly, dozens and dozens of people killed in front of my face. There were shootouts every single day. Some shootouts I was caught up in the middle of that had nothing to do with me. Someone that did.
So one would believe that as a young kid growing up, witnessing that in close proximity, that there was trauma.
Yeah.
And how you learn to deal with trauma in the hood? We can't see a clinician. Most of us can't even afford it. How did you deal with the trauma of that?
I don't think I did. I became a part of it. I'm the oldest child. My mother there was 3 of us. I was the oldest, and I'm the boy. And I felt like I had to be their protector. As a child, I was very soft-spoken. Tried to be like really gentle. What people would call a punk. I was a punk. When I moved to Brownsville with my mom, that had to change because I had to protect my family. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of violence.
You have to eat or be eaten.
Yeah. So I'm still processing through the trauma. I had to fake it till I made it.
So let me ask you this. Make a distinction between the person who you was when you went to prison and contrast that with the person that you were when you came out.
I was very angry prior to going to prison. I was very hurt. I was scared. I was a coward.
And why do you say that?
That I was a coward? Mm-hmm. Because there were certain opportunities, there were certain moments in life where I could have done the right thing, which may have been harder, which was harder. And I chose to go the opposite route because of fear.
The road more travel rather than the road less travel.
Yeah, and I did it out of fear. And so I've learned that when you make decisions in life, you're going to make them out of one or two things, either love or fear. And if you're consistently making your decisions out of fear, my understanding, my belief is that's being a coward. And
so maybe I used to describe it as moral cowardice.
Yeah.
Because in other ways, you was very bold.
Yes.
Sometimes fearless, especially when your anger was fully activated, right? You start to feel like the honk, you know what I'm saying? If there are consequences, you don't care about them because you're so angry, it emboldens you. But moral cowardice, you know what I'm saying? Like what you just said, taking the road less traveled.
Yeah, I didn't live a life based off of sound principles. Like,
did you have them? Was they ever given to you?
My mom did.
Okay.
My mom really tried. She was a single mom.
So she gave them to him. What did you do with them?
I used them when they suited me, when I could benefit from them. I was really good with people, like I still am. I'm a people's person. It's easy for me to have conversation. When I'm first meeting someone, it's very easy for someone to like me. So I did use some of the principles she gave me. For example, serving those who are less fortunate. For Thanksgiving, my mother, she would have us go to shelters and volunteer and to feed the homeless. So that's always stuck with me. Reading was a big, my mother was huge on reading and education. She was really big on that. There was no playing video games on the weekend. There was no playing video games during the week, number one, at all. And then there was no playing video games on the weekend until I read a book, my homework was done, and my chores were done. So those disciplines she installed in me, and I did use those.
So even with options, right? You had options, and you could have went left, and you understood that, but you chose to go right, the road less traveled. And why? Why was that more appealing? Why did you gravitate to that, to doing what you would call the cowardly thing? What was appealing about that? How did that resonate with you? And what part of you did it resonate?
We were poor. And the guys around me who I wanted to be like always had the latest fitted caps, the jerseys, the basketball jerseys, the newest sneakers. And they also had all the women. They had all the attention, they had all the love, they had people surrounding them. And it looks good and it feels good. And so I thought that was the route to go. That's what I chased after for a long time. Chased after women.
You know, it amazes me how common it is from generation to generation that we get caught up into those things like that, how we covet these things and think that in coveting that they somehow validate us or give meaning or purpose to our lives, which suggests to me that we must think that we are living meaningless and worthless lives. And so we bind to these superficial things that say, no, I am not worthless. If I'm blinging, if I have trinkets, then I'm the man, I'm somebody. But if I don't have it, I'm like the invisible man that Ralph Ellison wrote about in his book, the classic literature, The Invisible Man. In that book, the protagonist was always invisible when it came to white people until they needed to take advantage of him or do something with him. But generally, you're invisible. And it's the curse of invisibility, you know what I'm saying, that might make us feel so insecure and so worthless. But when you did have those things, how did you feel?
In the moment, I felt special. I felt wanted. I felt like I was the man.
Yeah.
I didn't. So when I growing up, like, music was a big, big part of my culture,
Mm-hmm.
and I would try to emulate what I saw on TV because I didn't have my father in my life at the time, and so I'm seeing the rap stars who are saying like that their life is the best, their life is the bomb, or back in the 90s we used to say butter.
Yeah.
Their life is butter.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that they have. They got the girls, they got the jewelry, they got the fitted caps, they got the sneakers, they got the cars. And so as a child growing up, you know, when you're 12 years old,
You're bombarded with that, right?
Yeah, it's like you're fresh to this world. So if this is what you're
highly
saying,
impressionable as a child.
Yeah, and if this is what they're saying makes a man, and you're trying to learn how to be a man, that's what you're going to follow. So that's what I did. So in the moment, I felt like I was the man.
So what, in your humble opinion, are the social dynamics that kind of shape you into the person that you became? If you had to do that, say that in just in a few words.
Every day, I do my best to remind myself to live a life based off of principles.
No, but back then, that's not.
Oh, back then.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. What the social dynamics that shape you then? What would you say before you went to prison? To what kind of person? Just in a few words, you know, what kind of person were you when you went to prison?
A womanizer,
Mm-hmm.
greedy,
Mm-hmm.
selfish.
So would you say that those descriptions, would you say that those are kind of typical?
Absolutely. We might not think about it in the moment that we're doing it.
So do you realize that everything you just said was a vice, right? You didn't describe nothing in terms of a virtue.
Yes. Yeah.
So you were shaped by a vice.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was the same way, brother. I understand. So why do you believe that anger and violence became a conventional way for how you dealt with social conflict?
I think there's a lot of reasons for that when it comes down to me. As a young man, I was told within my family, by society, TV, music, that I'm not supposed to cry. I'm always supposed to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Men, we don't really talk about it. Women do. And I held a lot of stuff like inside of me. For example, it really bothered me that my father wasn't in my life. Like, it affected me, and I don't know why. Like, because he wasn't in my life. It's not like I didn't meet my dad till I was 25.
Yeah, so in other words, you never really had him in your life in the first place.
Yeah,
so why
would I miss it, right? So there's something inside. It was something inside of me that was like, yo, there's something missing. But I couldn't talk about it. I didn't feel like
you didn't have the language.
I could talk about it.
You didn't have the language to verbalize it, right? Probably.
I think I probably did have the language, but because I was told that you're supposed to be a man and you're supposed to be tough, I didn't express it. But I was pretty smart I was pretty mature as a kid, at least with my words. I used to read a lot. So I think I did have the language. I just didn't use the language because I was told that I'm supposed to be this tough guy, and tough people don't talk about it. So my anger came from that was one of the ways my anger came, just not being able to express how I was feeling. In the family setting, and it's changed now, but in the family setting, I wasn't allowed to express myself or to question anything that my mother said or my grandmother said or my aunt said or my uncle said. You question somebody, you got smacked in your mouth.
You beat me with terror, actually, right?
Right? And so I remember, like, for example, my mother used to tell me, look, always tell the truth. No matter what, if you're going to get in trouble, you're going to get in trouble, but you can always tell me the truth. I was like, all right, cool. And I don't even remember what I did. I did something. And she was like, why did you do it? And I was just like, oh, because I wanted to. That was the truth. And instead of digging in deeper to say, okay, why did you want to? I got smacked. So what that taught me was, lie. Because you tell the truth, pain comes with truth. Like a physical pain comes with truth. So that was another part of my anger, just not being able to express myself. And I just felt like I felt like I was worthless for a very long time, up until I was an adult.
And often I learned that often when we have that sense, that acute sense of worthlessness, that we tend to overcompensate for it. You know what I mean by that? In other words, let's say if I feel worthless, then I'll feel much better if I can have that Cadillac, that Mercedes-Benz. Overcompensation.
Yeah.
But not only is it overcompensation, it really doesn't do anything for my
on the
self-esteem.
inside. Yeah,
it doesn't.
I mean, temporarily, like it did. Like I would get the stuff and I would feel good.
It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. But that's what I'm saying. Something that's more substantial. Something that constructs a more purpose-orientated and viable and sustainable form of self. You know what I'm saying? Probably because you're talking about self-esteem deficits. That's what you're talking about. Maybe And there's some in your past. I hear as you talking now, I can hear the minds because when you're speaking to me, when you speak, you're speaking to me, and your stories is often parallel to mine. Now, might be different experiences or different events that took place, but it came down to the same thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
and I think this is real typical in terms of when you're looking at Black masculinity among the youth. Right, I'm saying there's a time when you want to be a man. You remember that movie by Martin Lawrence, Thin Line Between Love and Hate?
Yeah.
In the end, the punchline he said, I learned to be a man rather than be the man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because for him, he was obsessed with being the man, the man who gets that check, man, the man who got money in his pocket, the man who driving that whip, all these superficial things that don't do anything to build character, to mold and shape us into viable and resilient creatures, man. You know what I'm saying? That become assets to our own family and communities. So to me, you was confronted with a lot of trauma.
Oh yeah. There was.
And you and all you did was learn how to react to it, but you didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. And it's just like so many reasons. Like I'm free to talk about, like I'm cool to talk about it now. But when I was like from 8 to 12 years old, I was molested. And I remember the first time that it happened. It was a horrible experience, right? Like, of course. When I talk to guys about it, they're like, "What, man? You got something at 8?" And I'm like, "Yo, but I was 8." Like, she was my babysitter, and so a lot of guys are like, "Man, that's a good thing." I'm like, "Nah, you don't understand." Like, she had me perform like oral sex on her.
Something that a child shouldn't have to be subjected to.
You don't. So, and I had to carry that. Like, I did not tell anybody about that until I was in my 30s. I told my nana about it, and then eventually I wound up telling other family members about it. But I felt like I was ashamed. I felt like I was a failure. It was just
so it's like these layers and layers of those kind of feelings, right? I'm saying, which are pretty good at suppressing the potential of who you could become. They suppress you, because it regulates how you respond to the world around you. Before you know it, you're only unwittingly reacting to these deepest things in your psyche that you don't even understand. And they play out sometimes in strange ways. And sometimes the strange ways that they play out, you're not even aware that that's connected to this trauma.
To the original,
these unresolved things in your psyche.
Yeah, because I'm almost certain I was a womanizer because I was molested. Like I'm pretty sure, because like just the science of it, from it was happening. She was babysitting us on a weekly basis, if not daily basis, right? So your body physically starts to become addicted to this feeling, this pleasure.
Yes.
From 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So for 4 to 5 years on a almost daily basis.
Yes.
And then when it stopped when I moved to live with my grandmother. It stopped with her. When it stopped, my body's still now craving it. Yeah. Right?
You know why? Because sex drive is a powerful sex drive.
Yeah, it's a power drive. So now I'm looking for, like, I'm having sex with young ladies, and it's just like, it becomes an addiction.
Yes.
And so, but I didn't realize it until I became an adult.
No,
like,
you didn't have
all of this is...
You didn't have a reference system for processing or dealing with that.
Yeah, at all.
You know what I'm saying? You didn't have it, and think about so many kids, young men our age, who went through the same thing, and they grow up never ever.
And that's the crazy thing, because I've spoken to a few guys, and they was like, yo, I spoke to one of my boys about it 2 weeks ago. And he was like, yo, that happened to me too. He was like, damn, I wonder if that's why I'm like this with women. I'm like, it probably is. He was like, yo, I never made the connection.
No.
But I've spoken to multiple guys who've said, yo, this has happened to me when I was a child.
So you think that sexual abuse among young black men is probably more common
than it's spoken? Yeah, because it's usually spoken about. I hear a lot of stories when it comes time to females.
Exactly.
Whether it's black females, white females,
that's a fact.
Females being sexually abused. We know that happens. You know what I mean? But I feel like that's spoken about more than when it happens to men. And
is it probably because men are not so forthcoming about that? We got this image to protect. We want to be seen a certain way,
It could be. A few of the guys that I spoke to who's it happened to as well, they said they told people about it. But the response to them is, what? You got you some...
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Because we're sick people.
But if a little girl says that, then it's just like, yo, you violated her. She's a little girl. You should not have done that to her. But when it happens to a little boy, it's like, he's a man. And it's like, no, he's not a man. He's been on this earth for 8 years. That's nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's because young men hold on to it more, because from the stories that I'm getting from the guys that I talk to, they've expressed it to people. They told people. It was just that it was glorified. It becomes glorified when it happens to a young man. Like, oh, now he's a man. You're a little man now.
Yeah, in a very sick, twisted way.
So,
no doubt about that. So in terms of social conflict, the way you used to deal with social conflict, right? It was very challenging for you. How do you deal with it now?
I try to talk it out. I have to change my thoughts.
I know you say I try. Is there any reason why you said the word?
So, yes, because whenever I would get into a conflict with someone, my first thought would always be, yo, I'm going to kill this person. And, I got locked up for attempted murder. That really would be like one of my first thoughts. Like, yo, I will kill you. And I meant it. I remember being in Fishkill. I was laying on a cot and I was thinking about, like, okay, why am I here? Like, and I'm not just talking about the crime that I committed. Like, what led me to do that? And a question popped into my head. What's the most precious thing on this earth? So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, gold, money, silver, And the answer that I came to was life. There's nothing more precious than life. Because once you, Michael Love, once you're out of here, that's it. There will never be another you. There might be someone who looks a little bit like you, who might smile a little bit like you, but they won't 100% be you. But I've made $10,000 and I've lost $10,000. I mean, I've made $20,000 and then I lost $20,000. And then you get that $20,000 back. I will never be able to get you back. So once I had to I came to the understanding of there's nothing more precious on this earth than life. That helped me to start changing my thought process.
Now, anger and arrogance or even violence has a place in prison. It's definitive of the subculture of prison life. It's how men, validate themselves and get their respect. Let people know they're not nobody's punk. They're not soft. So it's a language. So it's a way of the way men deal with each other, right? But now out here, I'm saying, in this so-called civilized society, who we see are becoming increasingly intolerant. We see so many road rages. We've seen people are not holding their anger. They're not checking their anger. And I know, if I remember correctly, that you was the subject of a road rage one time. You remember that?
Which time was that?
Cadillac, when he was driving. You remember? You and Andrea?
Oh.
The dudes followed you?
Yeah.
Now, so that was an example of you encountering, right? Encountering something that you knew about, but now it's directed at you, and you got your wife with you in the car.
Yeah.
And you remember how you felt about that then? Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So what happened was, it was late at night. I think we might have been coming from your house.
He was.
And we were driving, and I looked. I felt like I looked. I know I did look, but I clearly didn't look well enough. I looked on the side view mirrors, and I didn't see a car. And I put the blinker on, and I moved to the right, to the middle lane. But there was a car there, and so my wife, she was like, "Babe, push the car back over. There's a car there." And so I pushed the car back over. She was like, "You didn't see the car?" And I was like, "Nah, I didn't see the car." And she was like, "Yeah, there was a car there. You almost hit them. They really had to swerve to not to get hit." And so I was like, "Oh, shoot." So I pull back over. We're driving. And then I realized that, they're still behind us. But I'm like, we're on a road where they possibly could be going to the same area that we're going to. So, but then about like 10 minutes later, they're still behind. And I'm like I'm feeling myself getting riled up. Like I'm ready to pull over now, but I have my wife in the car. So still driving. And I'm like, all right, maybe they'll dip off. When I realized that they weren't dipping off, I stopped the car. Something said, "Yo, just stop the car." So I stopped the car. I rolled the window down. They rolled their windows down. It was like 4 dudes in the car. And he was like, "Yo, get out the car." So I'm looking at him and I'm like, and I have to hold my composure because my wife's in the car. So I was like, "Yo, I'm not getting out the car." So I said, "Yo, listen, bro, I apologize." I said, "I realized I almost hit you. I apologize. My fault. Your car's good. My car's good. No car got hit. But yo, I sincerely apologize, bro. I did not see you." And he was like, "Yo, what you mean you didn't see me?" So I'm like, "Bro, I didn't see you. Like, I legit did not see you. And I'm telling you that I was in the wrong. I apologize. I didn't hit your car. You didn't hit my car. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're good." Like, and he was like, "Nah, get out the car." So now I'm looking at him and I'm like, I really want to get out the car. I really want to get out the car.
What and you wanted to get out of the car?
I felt like they were.
No, think about it.
Yeah, no. I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm going to be brutally honest.
Tell me, I want to know what in you, not what they did, but what in you felt like you need to get out of the car.
Because I'm saying, yo, they don't know me. So my ego was like, yo, if this would have been just a few years ago, I'd have had my gun on me. I'd have shot that car up. They have no idea. So I'm like, yo. So I recognized that my ego was like, yo, get out the car.
Did that shake you a little bit?
It did.
And you called me.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. It did shake me. It shook me because it lets me know that
it still got work
it
to
was
do.
still, it's still inside of me, right? It's still there. And if I would have like had my gun on me, something probably would have happened, even with my wife being in the car. And for me, that was one of the biggest things, because it was just like, yo, my wife's in the car. Like, I'm apologizing, but now y'all are acting up. I don't know what y'all are capable of doing. If it was just me by myself, cool. But my wife's in the car with me. Y'all are acting up. So it did shake me up a little bit, because, not a little bit, a lot, because like when I went back home and I thought about it, I was like, yo, I really would have done something. So there's still work that needs to be done with me.
Yeah, anger it seems to be the one emotion for those of us who come from that kind of lifestyle that seems to die hard. It's almost like the last death of those destructive vices. And so pride and anger, you know what I'm saying, it's dangerous because it can go any way you want to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It can go any way you want to go. So I remember you calling, and to me that was growth, because after you had that, you were shook by it, and you called me because you needed to talk about it. And to me, that showed maturity. You know what I'm saying? You realize what could have happened, where it was in, where it could have went. You thought about the implications of it. You know what I'm saying? You processed that. And you know how the old man would have reacted. You know what I'm saying? You could have been just as fatalistic. We live in a generation where a lot of people are very fatalistic. They don't care about consequences. If they die, they die. At least I go down and blazing glorious. And that's not your thinking, though. You might flirt with that. You know, you're at a place in your life and your development where you recognize that you need to do something with that. You know. So one thing I know about you from inside is I know that you was a man who was really committed to your growth and development. You knew you was going to go home one day and you wanted to go home better than when you came into prison. So here's a question. I know your faith is one thing, and I know critical education, and sometimes they have the converging points for you because you study your faith. So let's talk about your faith. How does your faith inform your life?
Without my faith, I wouldn't have a purpose. And I realized that I was living a purposeless life, which was the reason why I was acting the way that I was acting. So I believe in the scriptures. I believe that Yeshua, Jesus, Yeshua is his Hebrew name. I believe that he's the Messiah. I believe he lived, he died, he was crucified on a cross, on a tree, came back to life. And he said, follow after me. I got to follow in his steps. So I try. Right? I fail a lot, though. Right? But I try to follow in his steps. Going back to studying the scripture was when I figured out, what my purpose is in life.
And what is your purpose?
My purpose, and I believe everyone's purpose, we just all go about it in different ways, is the first thing is to have a relationship with God. That's everyone's purpose, period. You were created in his image. You were created to be like him. And in order to be like him,
for his good pleasure,
you have to have a relationship with him, right? The second purpose is to love him and to love mankind. Service mankind. Serve him and serve mankind. And that's why I said we all have the same purpose. We just do it in different ways. So some people, like my wife, she's a nurse. She serves mankind as being a nurse. You know, I'm a life coach. I serve mankind as being a life coach. But I truly believe that our purpose on this earth is literally to love. It's to love.
Amen.
That's what we're supposed to do. And I don't mean love in the sense of emotions. I mean the what they would call the agape love, the love in action, being kind to people, being respectful to people.
Yes.
That's what we're supposed to be doing. When I read the scripture, all of his commandments, all of his instructions, if we follow them perfectly, this world will be perfect. And I've studied religions. I've studied different religions. I've never come across another religion where if you follow everything that they say, that the world will be perfect. The Bible is the only one thus far where when I'm reading, I'm like, if we just follow every single thing that he says to do, this world will be perfect. And
so when did you give your life to the Lord? In prison or after prison?
I said, that's always a tough question for me to answer.
Because I define giving your life to the Lord as the pivotal, the turning point by which your life, when you walk in the newness of life.
So I would have to say, so in prison was when I started to really believe that Yeshua died for me. For a long time, and I still struggle with it sometimes to this day, believing that. I'm like, me? But up until then, I just didn't believe it at all. I'm like, nah, he ain't died for me. I believed he died for the world, but I didn't have a personal, I didn't have a personal belief that, not even just a relationship, but I didn't believe that he died for me personally. But I do remember the day that when it sank into my heart, I was working in CMO. I was a treasurer, and I was sitting in the office and I was reading the scripture, and then it just hit me. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, as they say. It just hit my heart, and I was like, that man really he died for me. So it happened in prison. And it wasn't no like life altering
And
thing
also, what happened in prison was the development of critical education for you, right?
Yeah.
Speak to that.
So prior to prison, I got my GED when I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was 17 years old. I remember my mom was tight. She was not happy. I wanted to work with the Police Athletic League, so I went to them. It was like, yo, I want a job. And he was like, no, you have to have your high school diploma. And so I was just like, oh, all right, cool. And so I was in the ninth grade, 10th grade,
Mm-hmm.
ninth grade. And so I went back to, I went home and told my mom, like, yo, I'm going to go get my GED.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my GED 3 months later, started working, but that was it for me for formal education.
Yes.
That was it for me for formal education. I've always been an avid reader. I'm always reading. While in prison, I did the Rise and Hope program, and it taught me to be a critical thinker.
That's where we met at.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we met through the Rise and Hope program, and it was there that it taught me to be a critical thinker, which is very important. You can learn as much as you want to learn. You can read as much as you want to read, but you have to really be able to critique what you're reading and break down what you're reading. So that happened for me in Fishkill through the Rise and Hope program.
So your faith, critical education, these things are really what help develop you, right? Will help you to be mature more, will help you to step out of your comfort zone and learn new things that you never knew before.
Mm.
And the learning process, was that adventurous and exciting for you, would you say?
In the beginning.
Yeah. But what happened after that?
Man, you know how hard it is to change the way that you think?
Yes.
It's one of the hardest things to do is to change the way that you think, which is why most people don't do it. Mm-hmm. Most people are intellectually lazy because changing your thought process is very daunting. Mm-hmm. So I remember a paper that I wrote for, I think it was for your class. And they was talking about how Blacks can change, like alter their current circumstances. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I said was that we need to come up with our own solutions and our own programs outside of like what the Caucasians give us.
Yes.
Not strictly because they're white, but it's a cultural difference. They don't understand. But I then created a plan that followed the format of Benjamin Franklin. So,
without even understanding that, right?
I wasn't paying attention to it, right? Because Benjamin Franklin's plan, I thought it was a dope plan, right?
Yeah.
But it went against what I said we needed to do. So when I wrote the paper, and I'm like, yo, I'm killing this paper, right? Because my grammar's on point, my sentence structure's on point. Then I get the paper back, and it's just a bunch of red markings on it. And I'm like, yo, what? And then at the end, I think you gave me a C just because you were being nice, because I should have.
So for those who don't know, I was Sonny's boy, Charles Lewis, adjunct instructor in the Rising Hope program. What class was that? Was that Christian history or ethics?
That might have been ethics.
Yeah.
I think that paper was for ethics.
Yeah, so he would tell you that I didn't play no games with that. I expect guys to do well, but I really didn't believe that anyone was expendable and failing was not an option. So I would have guys do their work far more times than most professors would ever allow.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see them do well.
So when I got that paper back and it was just full with all that
the
red mark, it was absolutely, it was bloody. It was bloody. It hurt because for me, I put my all into it, but I had to go back and rethink and re-strategize. So it forced my brain to change, forced my thinking to change.
So that way of dealing with academics while you're behind the wall, how does that serve you now that you're out here in society? And does it serve you?
Yo, that's kind of sweet.
Yes, I said.
It does. Yeah. So prison is loud. Prison can be very loud. And when you're trying to study and you're trying to write papers, mm-hmm. and you got like a fight going on right here. Mm-hmm. You got somebody arguing with you right mm-hmm. here. You got people playing chess with you playing chess right there, and everything's loud. And you have to learn how to write a really good paper and study in that type of environment, it's challenging. But when I came home and I went to college, studying in a quiet environment, I was like breezing through, except for math. I was breezing through it. So it helped with that. It helped with when people hear that you were incarcerated, black or white. I find it mostly with the white folks though. They feel like your education level is like pretty low. And so when I came home and I was able to speak well and critically to certain topics, it gave me it opened up opportunities for me.
So that education behind the wall served you well out here, you said?
Absolutely.
Wasn't a waste of time.
Absolutely. Not even, and I'm not even just talking about like as far as jobs. I'm not just talking about as far as like school and just in your social settings. Having a formal education or just having an education doesn't even have to be formal. But educating yourself, learning how to read, learning how to write.
I agree.
It's going to help start it while you're on the inside, because it's harder to do on the outside. It's a lot harder to do on the outside.
So when you came home, I'm saying in 2016, and you've of course had a lot of challenges. There were some setbacks in your lives. There was times you had to back up and reevaluate and come another way. But you always had your faith and your education to fall back on. So how was family part of that?
I had to create a new family in a lot of ways.
Was that deliberate?
It was deliberate.
Okay. And
it was deliberate because part of the reason why I went to prison was because of my family dynamic. So, and I separated myself from my family for a while.
I'm aware of that.
For a while. And I felt like God was telling me to do that for a long time, and I just wasn't listening. And when I finally listened, He provided me with the family that I needed. But having that support system, whether it's from your biological family, whether it's from your spiritual family, you have to have a support system. And the people that you circle yourself with,
yes,
you're going to be like them in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I do believe people need to be very strategic with who they have in their life.
That's a fact.
And just because you're blood doesn't mean that you have to be a part of my life. Just because you're my brother, just because you're my sister, just because does not mean that you have to be a part of my life. If where I'm trying to go, you being in my life, is going to pull me away from that course, I've learned I will cut you off.
Well, I've seen you do it, and I know it wasn't easy for you to do. It was painful.
It was very painful.
Which proves that blood is not always thicker than water.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's not. You ever seen muddy water? There's a such thing as muddy water.
Yeah, there's a thing in muddy waters too.
It's a little bit thicker than blood.
So, is there a formula for? So right now you got a good job that you love. You got a beautiful wife. You live in a nice community in a beautiful apartment. You know what I'm saying, you got your own car, man. She has her own car, man. You living like the life of the Rileys or something, man. Who do you think you are, bro?
Man, I don't know about all that. Is there a formula? Yeah, there really is, and it's simple. I think because it's so simple, most folks don't really pay attention to it, but it's a couple of things. Do unto others as you will have others do unto you.
The golden rule.
It's the golden rule. Mm-hmm. What you put out, you will get back, period. You don't have to believe it, but it's a law. It's a law. If you believe in God, then you recognize that God put these laws in place. Whoever your God is, put these laws in place. So that's number one. You have to change the way that you think.
Stinking thinking.
As a man thinketh, so is he. When Jesus, he was in a desert for 40 days, 40 nights, right? When he came back, the first thing, when he started preaching, he didn't preach about him going to the cross. The first thing he said was, repent. most folks don't, I found that most folks don't understand what that word means. Repent doesn't mean to just feel bad for what you did. Repent literally means change the way that you are thinking. Everything starts with a thought. So if you change the way that you're thinking, if you change your thought process, your life will literally change. It may take some time for you to get to where you want to be, but you do have to change the way that you're thinking. So if you find that that you get upset quickly, cool. That's not really the problem. Acknowledge that you get upset quickly. Then come up with a way to not get upset so fast. So for me, like I said, prior to going to prison, somebody did something to me. My first thought was, yo, I'm going to kill them. While I was locked up, I was still having those thoughts. Somebody said something crazy. I was like, man, I'm going to kill this person. Then I was like, yo, now that I recognize that life is the most important thing, I can't be thinking like that. So then it went from, I'm going to kill them to, I'm going to punch him in their face. I really was saying that to myself. Like, no, I'm just going to punch him in the face. I'm just going to punch him in the face. And then it went from, I'm going to punch him to the face to, I'm going to slap them. And I was literally thinking this, no, I'm just going to slap him. And then it went to, like, no, let's just talk this out. Let's just talk this out. And when I got to that place of, yo, let's just talk this out, where it was not just in my mind, but also in my heart, there was many conflicts where it could have gone left. But I was able to pull a brother to the side, like, hey, yo, so when you said this, I'm saying this is how it made me feel. And I ain't, you know what I'm saying, I don't even want to have no issue with you. Like, I genuinely like you as a person. And you just see the whole, like, his whole face change. I remember you see the whole face change and the conversation changes. Just a couple of years ago, it'd have been a different story.
Yes.
I probably would have got my behind whipped because he was huge.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But
nonetheless, you would have been fighting.
We'd have been fighting. But changing the way that literally changing my thoughts, working on a daily basis of controlling my thoughts, managing my thoughts. That's one of the most important things that I think people don't do. It reminds me of
what Paul says in Romans 12 about be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And be not conformed, not only to the world, it says, right, but also interpret it as don't be conformed to the insanity that typically governs life. Because we can romanticize insanity because it's so normal, it's so predictable that we don't see nothing wrong with it no more. So the clock is against the clock, brother. So I have one question to finalize this interview. What would be your advice to people who are formerly incarcerated or people who are still in prison in terms of changing? What would be your advice to them? And remind you got 3 minutes.
I have to talk from personal experience. So seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. You have to, if you want to change your life, if you want to become a better person, you have to go to the Creator to find out how. When you get a VCR, right, or your phone, you get a new phone, the iPhones, you got to go to the maker's manual to understand how to use that phone.
That's a fact.
If you want to change your life and you say that you believe in God, then you have to go to God to figure out how to change your life. He's the Creator. That's it doesn't, for me, all the other things that you can do, you can get an education, you can go to school, you can get a degree. That will change certain circumstances. But it's not going to change you at your core. It's not going to change you as a person. It might make you smarter, but it's not going to change you at your core.
Your values.
If you want to become a better person, I just have to speak from I'm not a preacher. I'm not none of that. People tell me all the time, I'm not a preacher. Won't be a preacher. I'm not a preacher. I'm telling you from life experience. Yo, you got to go to God. You got to go to the Creator. You got to go to the one who made you so he can show you how you're supposed to be.
And with that, I thank you for affording me the opportunity to interview you. And I'd like to thank Caesar and Jordan and Laura for giving us the facilities and the resources for doing this interview and always having our back.
Shout out to
we
HV
appreciate
Podcast.
y'all. This is a Taste of Transformation, and we're about giving you a glimpse into the life of change. People change in different ways. And it's always a remarkable and astounding thing to see. So tune in to the next time And the Taste of Transformation will be focused on some other individual whose journey and story is powerful. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.